Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, we got a chance to watch Ohio State, Penn State for the second time, once live, now on the TV. And we do these every week, and usually there's a whole bunch of stuff that I look at and I go, wow, I didn't notice that the first time. This is the most, I've already seen this game, I think we've ever had for one of these where it was like, I have a pretty good sense for how Ohio State beat Penn State. And yup, sure did.
It is interesting because you could see all of the cuts very cleanly from above or from the field level, wherever it was. You could see like, oh dear, oh no. And so there's a lot of that. I would agree. Just going through this, and a lot of this is then, just looking at what's going on with the line of scrimmage or little things here or there. But I will start, and maybe this is certainly something we have talked about, but maybe we should start to talk more about Kenyata Jackson, who was all over the field in this one, had 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. One of my main notes here is just Kenyata Jackson in all capital letters. And he is playing the part of the 6'6", 265-pound monster. And it's funny that this has happened in the last few weeks when he went to Matt Patricia and was like, hey, coach, do you think maybe I could rush the passer a little more? Would that be okay? Caging is fine, but I actually like to get after the quarterback. So this season he has 4.5 sacks. 3.5 of those have come in the last 3 weeks. And it looks like things are only picking up. And Tom, I wanted to just mention that to mention this. Through 8 games last year, JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer had combined for 52 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. Through 8 games this year, Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson, 50 tackles compared to 52 last year for the starters, 17.5 tackles for loss compared to 11 last year for the starters, 11.5 sacks compared to 7 at this point last year for starters JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer.
That's pretty impressive. And it's, I feel like there was a point during the year, and really the point was during the Washington game where it was, oh, this is the Caden Curry game, all caps. Mm-hmm. And you kind of, I came into the year thinking Kenyata Jackson is going to really take a leap, and Caden Curry, I think he's going to be good, but I don't think he's going to be super, super elite. And then you watched the Washington game and it was like, oh, wow, he's been amazing. Haven't gotten what you expected out of Kenyata Jackson. And then you watch this game and it was like, oh, hey, you're getting what you wanted out of Kenyata Jackson, where he had the sacks, but he had one where he didn't get a great pass rush and just got his arm up and deflected a pass. And I think that might've been a 3rd down, but he broke up a pass attempt. He's just both of those guys have been so impactful, doing a bunch of different stuff. And I want to sort of talk about Arvell Reese as well in the conversation, because Arvell Reese, I was watching him and, I feel like he kind of belongs in the same conversation, because it's like he's listed as a linebacker on the roster, but also he's doing a lot of the same stuff those other 2 guys are doing. And so you watch him and it's just one play, he just absolutely torches the left tackle and gets a sack. And then there's another play. This was actually a play where the Penn State completed a ball 25, 30 yards downfield maybe, and who's got the underneath coverage there where Ethan Garkemeyer layered in a nice throw, but there's Arvell Reese down there basically playing safety. And it was like, I remember when Pete Werner was, one of Ohio State's linebackers, and you would see him rotate back to safety, and it was like, wow, that was incredible. And, I didn't go back and rewatch the thing 3 times, but it was almost like he was like the pole runner in Tampa too. And if you have a guy who can be a pass rusher, who can break things, can get to the quarterback and beat a tackle, but also could be the, be the deep middle guy on some of your, he wasn't the deep middle guy. There was someone deeper, but there, to be in pass coverage 20 yards down the field. I mean, that's, that should just have Matt Patricia just tenting his fingers and cackling with glee. To have all of these guys who can do all this stuff. And he plays the same position as Caden Curry sometimes, but Caden Curry can also line up as zero tech straight over the center like a nose. But, Arvell Reese can play 20 yards down the field. And it's like, yeah, but they play the same position. Like, that is nuts.
There are times where Arvell Reese is on the end, almost like an old school like Sam linebacker, except he's on the weak side, and he's one of 5 linemen basically. And then he will grab an offensive tackle, and he'll stay there as long as he needs to, like he's playing contain on the run. And then here comes the ball, and he just takes an arm and just throws the tackle away, and then gets the ball. And it's not the first time we've seen him just cast aside an offensive tackle. And this dude is incredibly strong, fun to watch. And he had 12 tackles and 2.5 tackles for loss, and 1 sack, 2.5 tackles for loss, 12 tackles. The draft people love him. The awards people will probably be talking quite a bit about him as well.
Yeah, he was on the Lombardi semifinal list, something like that. Like there were 12 Lombardi semifinalists, and I think there were 3 Buckeyes on that list. And yeah, I mean, you're seeing the draft Twitter people start to, hey, have you seen this Arvell Reese guy? It's like, yes, a lot of people have seen this Arvell Reese guy, but it's good. It's good to see him getting some of that recognition now, because it is, it is based on how he's played this year. It is long overdue. One of the things, every once in a while, I'll watch a game and I end up thinking not of that team, but I'm thinking of like, what does this mean for Michigan, for example? Like we'll watch Michigan when we do Michigan Monday. It's like, what does this mean for the Ohio State game? Tony, as I'm watching Penn State do a Liam Clifford end around pass and Ohio State just having double coverage on the receiver, and then they run the Chip Lindsey special, they reverse, then flea flicker, and you have used this analogy a number of times with Andy Kotelnicki, the Indiana Jones, the guy with the swords, and he's waving the stuff around, and Indiana Jones is just standing there and pulls out a gun and shoots him. That reverse flea flicker play was the most that in history, because Ohio State was in just a zone, and so they've got like 7 guys in coverage. And Penn State is doing all this fancy stuff behind the back, in the backfield. Oh, look. Oh, we're going this way. Oh, we're going that way. Oh, razzle dazzle. Here comes a pitch back to the quarterback. And all the Ohio State defenders are just standing there going, come on, I want to get to halftime. Come on, hurry up. And it ended up being a loss of 14. And, I'm watching this, and we talk about this all the time, about how disciplined Ohio State has been, and how you're running these trick plays, and it's a 1-man route, and the whole conceit of the play involves the defense they're going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe yet again. And this is an Ohio State defense that does not fall for the banana in the tailpipe. Mm-hmm. And, that's Michigan's base offense, but it sure feels like something that Michigan leans on. The only long touchdown or long pass Bryce Underwood had during the spring game was off of that. And one of the long, I think the long pass last week against Purdue was off of that. And it's like, well, if nothing else, you're going to get a good gain off that. And it's like, I don't know that you're going to get a good gain off of that when you play Ohio State in about a month.
Well, and on that play, Kenyata Jackson is just rushing the passer the entire time. And by the time Gruckmeyer finally gets the ball, that's when Kenyatta finally breaks through. And it's like, there goes the play. The play is dead as he bails out and tries to find a way out of there. So it's just interesting to watch the discipline of the defense on plays like that when, they're waiting for it, and then they see it and they recognize it. And it's like, as you said, they're just looking at their shoes, like waiting for the play to begin to get to them so that they can go do something. Always interesting to watch a really disciplined defense. Should I stay on defense? Do I have something here? Oh, I will say, loved the toss sweeps from Penn State and student body left. And that was fantastic. Eventually got snuffed out and it went away, but they did a really good job blocking on those. And it's just fun to see those. Take note, Ohio State, maybe down the road.
Well, and that's another thing that you watched and you thought, I could see Michigan doing this. Like Michigan lining up with 6 offensive linemen and just kind of we're going to overload on one side and we're going to run that way and we're going to man ball you. And it worked it worked. That was their best drive of the game. I think they had they had, they had one right off the bat, but then they had another drive where they ran a couple of those. And it was like, that is sort of the inverse where, you're looking at one thing and going, Michigan would love to do this, and it is not going to work at all. And this is one where you look at it and go, Michigan would love to do this. And like, yeah, I can see that working for them to a certain degree.
Yeah, I expect to see some 6, maybe 7 offensive linemen on the field for Michigan when they play Ohio State. How about the Ohio State offense? There was a play, 3rd and 5, and I tweeted this out a day or two ago, where Penn State has everybody covered, and Julian Sayin throws a back shoulder to Jeremiah for like 17 yards, and there's nothing you can do about it. He's throwing the ball well before Jeremiah is thinking of turning and looking, and it's just Penn State does everything right, and it doesn't matter. And this is a 3rd and 5 where, do you need to throw the ball like 15 yards downfield? No, but is that your best shot? Like, apparently, back shoulder when, they've got like Brandon Innes running a little in and out type thing, and he's covered, and everybody's covered, including Jeremiah Smith, but that back shoulder spot there with a safety that can't get down quickly enough. The execution is elite. And then to something that we talked about on Tuesday, where Ryan Day is talking about drawing up a play at halftime. That was the first deep shot of the second half. They came up with that at halftime based on what they were seeing. That's another example. Defenses can do everything right, and then you can either just throw this back shoulder and it's fine, or you know what? They'll come up with something they haven't practiced all year, all week, and say, let's try this. This would work against this defense. It's not something that Penn State or anybody will have seen prior, wouldn't have seen it previously in any of the film. And it's just like, well, you know what? Let's just do that instead. And, boom, touchdown or 57 yards or 52 yards or whatever. And it's like, but we thought, but didn't we do good? No.
Well, it's kind of like, the old Twitter meme that, I worked on this story for 18 months and he just tweeted it out. It's like Jim Knowles has been grinding film. He has not left the Lash building in the 10 months that he's been at Penn State. He's done nothing. He has had a pipeline installed to have his McDonald's coffee delivered directly from McDonald's to his desk. He has done nothing but come up with the ideal scheme to beat Ohio State. And then Ryan Day is like, I don't know, backyard football. You do this, you run this, and you run a button hook at the elm tree, and then you run a streak, and all right, go. And 3 steps into the route, you hear Ryan Day, as Bill Landis pointed out, Ryan Day on the sideline yelling, got him! And like, I talked to Ross Fulton about the earlier play you talked about, that back shoulder play to Jeremiah Smith, and that episode will come out on Wednesday afternoon on the YouTube channel and on the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast feed. But he said, like, this is a coverage that you're going to see a lot more, because it really does take away everything Ohio State wants to do, and it's still just all right. Well, we'll just throw back shoulder. Thank you guys put some tremendous effort into this. We really appreciate that. I'm going to throw back shoulder Jeremiah Smith, and he's going to get it. But like, hey man, salute on the coverage. Great job. You had us in the first half, not going to lie. Like there's so many times that you watch this and it's just like, yeah, but what do you want me to do? Like I'm doing everything I possibly can, and there's nothing you can do to stop this. And that has to be just so immensely frustrating and such a helpless feeling to a certain degree, because it's just, Julian Sayin has been so accurate. And this was my next point was, you see these downfield throws, and there are teams that can't throw the ball downfield at all and just won't throw the ball downfield at all. I mean, you log how often teams are throwing the ball more than 10 yards down the field. It's like there are some teams that'll throw the ball down, more than 10 yards down the field, like 3 times a game, and it's maybe 1 for 3, and that's it. And Julian Sayin had, I don't know how many balls he had with like 50 air yards on them, but it was probably like 3 or 4, and they were, I think, all complete. And the one that really struck me, there were a couple. There was the one that was like, well, he underthrew it to Carnell Tate. It was like, yeah, he had a defender in his face. He couldn't step into the throw, so he underthrew him slightly on the 50 yards downfield touchdown. Sorry, everyone. But then the long one to Jeremiah Smith, not either of the touchdowns, but the long one down to Jeremiah Smith in, I think, the third quarter, Um, it's not just that it hits Jeremiah Smith in stride. It's that Jeremiah Smith doesn't even have to move his arms. It's not that he has to he hit him in stride, but he had to reach out for it a little bit. No, he's running down the field, 50 yards, doesn't break stride, doesn't change direction. It's just boop, right in his arms. I mean, just if I had ever moved that fast in my entire life without using a motor vehicle, I could have caught that ball. It's just right there, just boom. And that's not to take anything away from Jeremiah Smith, because he did a bunch of stuff later in the game that was like, well, can't do that. I certainly cannot do that. I don't know that anyone else on earth can do that, but it just looks so effortless. All this stuff, the back shoulder fit, and so much work goes into this. This is not like, well, it's just a God-given thing. Yeah, it's a God-given thing, but it's also God gives it to you after you spend, about 2,000 reps on the practice field working on it and perfecting it. And then it's like, wow, that's God-given. It's like, sort of, but it just looks, I know it's not effortless, but it just looks so effortless at times.
Well, a couple of things. That one-handed catch is just another example on the tip pass of we did everything right. And what happened? Oh, you scored a touchdown. This is bull crap.
And they tipped the pass, and there's two defenders there, and he's still. I didn't realize live. I saw it was just like a weird thing, and I'm looking through a camera lens. I didn't realize that pass was tipped. I just saw him catch it one-handed, and I was like, was it a bad throw? Was it behind him? Yeah. What are you supposed to do?
Well, and I think you see that the Penn State faces are exactly like that. What are we supposed to do? But to that deep pass to Jeremiah, Julian is throwing that, and he's throwing it into double coverage, but he starts launching that thing before Jeremiah ever gets to that safety. And that safety stood no chance because he was just standing, and you can't be standing or else you're not even in the picture. And Jeremiah ran right by both of those guys. And the other touchdown to Jeremiah Smith, the slant on there was Jim Knowles blitzes the safety over top of Jeremiah in the slot. And my thinking is, I'm not a defensive coordinator. I don't know how to call plays. I don't know how to call off plays. But if you're blitzing the guy that's over top of Jeremiah Smith as the double coverage guy, you might want to call that off and give your guys some help. But they didn't. That guy blitzes, and Julian Sayin is able to hit right there for that slant for a touchdown. That was impressive. There was another one with Jeremiah, and I'm just trying to scan through my notes here. The diamond formation opposite of Jeremiah, and you've got one corner and one safety, and they both know we're in trouble, and this is going to be some sort of a slant. That's fine as long as it's not a slant and go. We'll do what we can. We'll tackle them. Like to see more of that and see what they can come up with that. But it is interesting to see them push the defense one side. And they did go back to that diamond formation and try to throw something out of it. But yeah, anytime you can get the defense away from Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate for that matter, there's some good things you can do there.
For sure. I had that one written down as well, because that's another one you look at it and we're like, walk me through the scenario where this isn't 8 yards automatically every time. Because it's just, you put your diamond formation on one side, and either they're going to be completely outnumbered on one side, or they're going to have, even if they put two guys on Jeremiah Smith, you put it to the wide side of the field, and what's the game plan there? If you play inside leverage, you're going to get hit with a fade. If you play outside leverage, you're going to get hit with a slant, and you can't just play two guys on the line of scrimmage or he'll just run past them. So you have to have, one of the guys. The safety was, 10, 12 yards deep on that, maybe like that, something like that. But it was just, all right, well, throw a little slant. And I don't know what they picked up, 6 yards, 8 yards or something like that. But it was like, there's no one else over there. There's nothing but green grass, and he can do a bunch of cool stuff with empty space. So that feels like that's one of those, Lane Kiffin is great at just something's working. All right, call it again. All right, call it again. If you really wanted to clown someone, I think you could just line that up and just do it and do it and do it and do it and do it. And just until they come up with something to take that away. Okay, we're going to put three guys over there. All right, well, we're going to throw it to Carnell Tate on the other side, and he's got three blockers, for three defenders. And then, then you look like an idiot on that side.
To me, it looked like this would have been a situation like if this is, like grade school baseball where the manager just comes out of the dugout is like, walk him. That's a walk. We're going to put him on first. And we're not pitching to this guy. Just put Jeremiah Smith on first and we'll deal with the next play.
Jeremiah Smith, the Shohei Ohtani of Ohio State football. Yeah, one thing on the defensive side of the ball that I wanted to mention is that it's so hard to go side to side on this Ohio State defense. Like the only time you really saw that work was the plays that you talked about where they had like an overload and you run a quick toss, something like that. If you've got we're going to stretch the defense horizontally, they're too fast. Like they're going to run you down. You've got the linebackers are too athletic. The corners are too athletic. The defensive ends are too athletic. The safeties are too athletic. They crash too hard. There's nothing there. And the number of teams that can stretch, I would love to watch the Ohio State offense go up against the Ohio State defense in an actual game where, the Ohio State defense can stress, or Ohio State offense can stress the Ohio State defense vertically in a way that I don't know how many other teams can. Like, I'll be interested to see what Indiana does with their pass game. They're somewhat side to side as well, but they can hit you downfield. Boy, if that's the Big Ten championship game, I cannot wait to watch that football game. That is going to be a phenomenal football game. But yeah, there aren't that many teams that can stress Ohio State downfield. You're certainly not going to see many the next 3 weeks or so. And I don't, we'll see what Michigan looks like by the time they get there. But even in the playoffs, there's a bunch of teams that you would play that are not going to be able to do that. And I don't, I think going sideline to sideline is not going to be where you're going to make your money against this Ohio State defense.
And this, to me, this was not Caleb Downs' best game with angles. There's a couple that, he wasn't quite there, but again, they had one major scoring drive, so it was all good enough. I thought you're seeing Taiwan Malone every week do something. He was pushing the line of scrimmage. You always see like Will Smith, when something happens and something gets collapsed, you see little Will Smith coming out from the bottom of the pile. He's continuing to make plays, and I thought Edric Houston, this may have been his best game. Ryan Day has talked about how he's flashing, but he needs to stop flashing and just be consistent. I saw PFF had him as the highest graded defensive lineman of the week, which, as you know, those are legitimate grades, and nobody can say another word about it.
When they confirm what we think, it's meaningful data. When they don't, how does PFF know what's happening on the
exactly? But I think those are the bulk of my defensive notes. I will say also, I think we answered the question about who had the advantage between Ryan Day's offense and Jim Knowles' defense and the familiarity of the two, because, the score, but also I'd say there was nothing, there was more pressure than we've seen on Julian Sayin this year, but they took advantage of Jim Knowles' defense repeatedly, thoroughly, and dramatically down the field. And there was a lot of baking, Tom, as we would say, for that Ohio State offense.
Well, I think there's an X's and O's conversation there, and there's a Jimmy's and Joe's conversation there. And I think there was probably a number of times that Jim Knowles is up in that press box and just sort of having the same, like, yeah, man, what do you want me to do with this? Like, I got what I got, and they got what they got. And, you don't necessarily need to be a schematic genius to make Julian Sayin to Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate look like, wow, that was quite a play. They must have really drawn one. Yeah, I was like, yeah. Sometimes they could just draw one up and just wing it, and that also works fine. So, but not to take anything away from Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, who also had a winning game plan. That was a winning personnel and also winning scheme game for Ohio State. The last thing I had was, boy, if you get behind the sticks and you find yourself in an obvious passing situation, you are deader than disco against this Matt Patricia defense. There was the one where Arvell Reese got a sack. They had 3 pass rushers who beat their guys immediately. And I think it was Arvell Reese and Davis Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews who were in the backfield. Like, it was just, it was just like, we'll just pull names out of a hat. And if you're a first time or, second game starting quarterback, like Ethan Grunkemeyer, like, you're looking at the pressure and it's like, all right, well, they've got 6, 7 guys showing pressure. 4 of them are probably going to come. Which 4? Oh. And, for the offensive line, like you're probably thinking you're going to be blocking a bunch of defensive linemen. Nope. It's going to be a couple corners and Arvell Reese off the side. And it was immediate. And there was nowhere to go with the ball. There was pressure immediately. This is just, if you can't stay on schedule and you get yourself in a predictable situation where line Caden Curry up over the center, as they did against Washington, or Kenyata Jackson off the edge, or Arvell Reese off the edge, and you don't have a mobile quarterback who they have to cage and they have to really respect the rush threat, like, man, oh man, you are setting yourself up for not a very good time at that point.
I was just looking at Ohio State's third down defensive stats. In October, they allowed 7 conversions on 36 attempts, 19.44%. Penn State did better than that.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's, that some good fortune for Penn State more than maybe anything else there. Some of my last ones, I thought this was Max Clare's best blocking day or a significant improvement than some of his other days. Tegra Shabola had some good moments, and I'm watching this, I'm like, he's doing pretty well. And then, like, as I'm thinking that, he gives up on the pass interference call where Julian Sayin gets drilled and also gets a roughing call. That was Shabola. And then Sayin bounces right back and is, no worse for wear. The Bennett Christian touchdown, all of the tight ends are absolutely thrilled. The number 2 offensive line comes out there and celebrates with him. I don't want to spend too much time on this one because it's just a pet peeve of mine. It's right up there with the shovel pass. Coaches just can't not run the ball in a 2-minute drill. They just refuse to not run the ball. And I don't know if we talked about this after the game, and, they ran it once. It led to a fumble. You don't need to run the ball down there. I don't know. You're looking for 7 yards. What good does that do you? Like, is this like a coaching cult thing? Like, you've bled your hand and you've done this and you've, lit your thing. And it's like, when you're in a 2-minute drill, you must do this or you will not be blah, blah, blah. Like, they all do it. And I don't understand it.
If I don't run the ball in a 2-minute drill, they won't let me go back to Bohemian Grove. The owl told me so. Yeah. No, and I think it's just, you have, the defense knows you want to pass. So you're going to get a light box and you think, okay, I mean, you've seen it work enough that you're always tempted to go, well, I mean, think about how stupid they'll feel if I run the ball for like 12 yards on just like the most basic draw play or something like that. So I get it. And they certainly had time to, move down the field and not be in a huge rush at that point. But yeah, there's, that's one of those times when I also think all the plays that we look at and go, you could just run that 5 times in a row and it would be a first down every time. Like, that's the time to run those plays. Like, go ahead, don't screw around, just get down the field, score some points and move on. Now, if they throw an interception, I'm sure we're sitting here and saying, why don't they run the ball there? I don't understand. But yeah, I agree with you because there are certainly Julian Sayin certainly at this point, this is not the Texas game. Like, he is not some unknown. You know what you got with him now. He can be trusted to make good decisions. He can be trusted to put the ball in a good spot. Your wide receivers can be trusted to get themselves open. You would like to see just some boom, 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 boom right down the field. Just be methodical with it. You don't need to, you don't need to heave it downfield. You don't need to run the 4 verts on every single play, but you can just be methodical and take it down the field in chunks. And there are certainly guys open I think it was on the Jeremiah Smith one. You will notice that Jeremiah Smith is the outside receiver. Brandon Innes is the slot guy on that side of the field. And he throws it to Jeremiah Smith, on the one way, way, way downfield that we talked about earlier. Brandon Innes is running a wheel route, and there is not a Penn State defender within 25 yards of him, where that would have probably been a long gain, if not a touchdown as well. Like, these guys, you can't cover everyone. And these guys are good enough that they're going to get open, and Julian Sayin is going to throw the ball and put it in the right spot, and he's going to make a good decision. So yeah, it does feel like that's, it does feel like that is something you'd like to see. One last thing for me, This is, and these are just graphics that they put on the game. Two things that I thought, I took screenshots and thought, well, we got to talk about this. Teams to hold first 8 opponents under 17 points. Alabama 2011, Alabama 2012, Georgia 2021, Michigan 2023, all won national championship. And then the other one, the trivia question was the last non-Michigan Ohio State conference loss at home. And the only team to beat them in Ohio Stadium in conference since 2011 was Michigan State in 2015. It hasn't happened in 10 years, and it's only happened once outside of Michigan since 2011. That is, you hear about the big 2 little 8 days of the 1970s, and it's like, it's not just big 2 now. And the little number is a lot bigger thanks to conference expansion. But like, man, oh man, like I used to look back at that. And I was like, wow, what must that be like for just to be completely hopeless for opposing teams to come into Ohio State and have no chance to win. And it's like, we're watching it and it doesn't really feel like that now, but you see that stat and it's like, how is that possible?
Yeah, that was the first one that came to my mind. And I was like, you're like, is that possible?
I'm thinking I must be forgetting something. Didn't Purdue get them or someone, or Iowa? I was like, no, those were all on the road.
And Oregon was not yet in the Big Ten in 2021. Couple of my last things. While you were criticizing Julian Sayin for not seeing Brandon Ennis.
Wasn't exactly what I did, but go on.
In the second quarter, they mentioned like he's 9 of 12 passing. I'm like, well, that means he doesn't throw any incompletions in the second half. The dude is ridiculous. Ohio State ran the ball on 3rd and 4, up 31-14, and it felt like let's just see. Let's just see if we can get 4 yards. They did not, I don't believe.
That was the only punt all game. That was the only time all game where they were trying to score points outside of that one fumble right before halftime. That was the only time all game where they were trying to score points, and they didn't score points.
And I also like the full house pistol with running the ball out of that with Bo Jackson and whomever else, but having the 2 tight ends as fullbacks there next to Julian Sayin. I like that they're continuing to work on different things with the running game as they continue to not just look for explosive plays, but efficiency and consistency. And I think that is everything that I have, and that is everything that you have. That is everything that we learned rewatching Ohio State's 38-14 win over Penn State. So thank you all for joining us. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. We would appreciate that. And of course, 5-star rating and review on every single podcast platform. And I know you use multiple, so go ahead and download this show multiple times, the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. Of course, download Tom's Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning Podcast multiple times, 5+ star rating and review. Nothing under 4.75 stars. We would appreciate that. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you all later.